The great hall of the Astraean palace fell silent as the stranger's blade pressed against the throat of Joreth, Princess Ilara's champion. Blood trickled down the polished silver of the weapon, a stark crimson contrast against its gleaming surface. Joreth, undefeated for 15 years, lay prone on the marble floor, his chest heaving with labored breaths. "Do you yield?" The voice of the Terran commander, Kalen Vross, echoed through the cavernous chamber. Princess Ilara gripped the arms of her crystal throne, her knuckles white with tension. This wasn't supposed to happen. No one had ever bested Joreth in combat, certainly not in a single strike. The Terran Federation was meant to be repelled today, as all previous invaders had been. "I yield," Joreth choked out, shame evident in his voice. Kalen withdrew his blade and stepped back, his tall frame straightening. As he turned toward the throne, though human like the Astrians, there was something unmistakably different about him, a fluid grace that spoke of enhanced reflexes, perhaps genetic modifications that the Terran military was rumored to employ. "Princess Ilara of House Solari," he announced, his deep voice carrying effortlessly across the hall. "According to the ancient laws of Astrea, which you yourself invoked when you offered trial by combat, you are now bound to serve the victor." A slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Me!" whispers erupted among the courtiers. Ilara rose slowly, her silver gown catching the light from the crystal chandeliers above. Her auburn hair was pinned elaborately atop her head, her crown a delicate band of starlight gems. "Commander Vross," she replied, keeping her voice steady, despite the fury building within her. "You have indeed bested our champion, but surely you don't intend to enforce such an archaic aspect of our law." "I intend to enforce every letter of it," Kalen replied, sliding his weapon into the scabbard at his hip. "You and your royal attendants will accompany me to my ship within the hour. The Federation requires certain assurances of Astrian cooperation." Ilara descended the 3 steps from her throne, approaching Kalen with measured strides. Up close, she noted the flecks of gold in his green eyes, the scar that ran along his jawline. "And if I refuse?" she asked quietly. "Then the Federation will have no choice but to take this planet by force rather than through lawful combat." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. "Which would you prefer, Princess? A few months of service or watching your cities burn?" Ilara inhaled sharply. "You wouldn't dare!" "Test me and find out." There was no malice in his tone, only cold certainty. Her royal attendants, Tarek, Vinya, and Pella, had moved to flank her, their expressions ranging from outrage to fear. "Your Highness," Tarek murmured. We can and we must," Ilara cut him off. She raised her chin, meeting Kalen's gaze directly. "Very well, Commander, we will honor our laws. But know this, I am not defeated, merely delayed in my victory." Something like respect flickered in Kalen's eyes. "I would expect nothing less, Your Highness. Pack lightly. Space aboard military vessels is limited." As he turned to leave, Ilara clenched her fists, her mind already racing with possibilities for escape or rebellion. She had not survived a decade of political intrigue to be undone by a single combat she hadn't even participated in. Whatever game this Terran commander was playing, she would learn the rules, and then, when he least expected it, she would change them altogether. The Terran vessel Horizon was unlike anything Ilara had seen before. Sleek corridors of gunmetal and blue light stretched in every direction as she and her 3 attendants followed Kalen through what seemed like an endless maze. "These will be your quarters," Kalen announced, stopping before a sliding door that opened to reveal a spacious cabin. "Your attendants will be housed in adjacent rooms." Ilara stepped inside, surprised by the comfortable furnishings. She'd expected a prison cell, not private quarters with a viewport showing the stars. "I assume I'm not free to wander your ship," she said, turning to face him. "You're not a prisoner, Princess." Kalen crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You're a political guest with certain obligations. You'll have access to common areas and the observation deck. My second-in-command, Daria, will provide you with proper clearance." After he left, Vinya rushed to Ilara's side. "Your Highness, this is madness. We must find a way to escape." "Patience," Ilara counseled, moving to the viewport. Below, her world grew smaller. "First, we learn. We watch. We understand our enemy." Over the following weeks, Ilara observed Kalen closely. He wasn't the brute she'd expected, but a thoughtful leader who commanded respect through competence rather than fear. She noticed how crew members sought his counsel, how he listened before deciding, how he ate with the lowest-ranked engineers and technicians. During a shared meal in the officers' mess, Ilara found herself seated beside him. "Your crew seems unusually loyal," she commented, keeping her voice neutral. Kalen's mouth quirked up. "Is that surprise I detect, Princess? Did you expect floggings and iron discipline?" "The Federation isn't known for its gentle approach to conquered worlds. Perhaps you don't know us as well as you think." His gaze lingered on her face longer than necessary, and Ilara felt an unwelcome flutter in her stomach. Later that night, as Tarek helped her organize intelligence gleaned from conversations with crew members, he observed, "The commander watches you differently than others." "What do you mean?" Ilara asked sharply, like a man seeing sunshine after too many storms. Tarek's eyes were knowing. "Be careful, Your Highness. Stockholm Syndrome works both ways." Ilara dismissed his concern with a wave, but that night she dreamed of green eyes with golden flecks and woke with her heart racing. This weakness was unacceptable. She couldn't afford attraction, not when her people's freedom might depend on her clear judgment. Yet the next day, when she spotted Kalen training alone in the ship's gymnasium, his movements precise and powerful, sweat gleaming on his bare chest, she found herself lingering in the doorway longer than she should have, mesmerized by the controlled strength. In every motion, when he looked up and caught her watching, neither spoke. Something unspoken passed between them. Something that made diplomatic regulations and ancient laws seem suddenly very far away. Ilara was reviewing star charts in the ship's library when she overheard the whispered conversation. "Vross has gone soft, bringing royalty aboard instead of establishing a military presence on Astria. The Admiral won't stand for it." Tomorrow's the day. Once we reach the Cygnus checkpoint, Lieutenant Mercer's team will take control. And the Princess? Collateral damage. Unfortunate casualty of a failed coup. Ilara's blood ran cold. She slipped away unseen, mind racing. This conspiracy threatened Kalen, but why should she care? Wasn't this an opportunity for freedom? But freedom at what cost? The plotters clearly had no intention of sparing her or her attendants, and Kalen, for all his role as her captor, had been honorable in his treatment of them. She found him alone in his office, reviewing reports. When the door slid closed behind her, he looked up in surprise. "Princess, it's late for a diplomatic visit." "This isn't diplomatic." She stepped closer. "Your Lieutenant Mercer is planning a coup when we reach Cygnus checkpoint tomorrow. They intend to kill you and me." Kalen's expression hardened. "How did you learn this?" "People forget I exist when they're plotting treason." She sat across from him. "Why warn you? Because dead I cannot help my people, and because—" She hesitated. "Because you've been fair when you had no obligation to be." His gaze softened. "Thank you, Ilara." It was the first time he'd used her name without her title. The intimacy of it hung in the air between them. The next day, when Mercer attempted his coup, Kalen was ready. The uprising was quelled within hours, with minimal casualties. That evening he came to Ilara's quarters. "You saved many lives today," he said, "including mine." Self-preservation, she claimed, but they both knew it wasn't entirely true. He stepped closer. "Is that all it was?" Their eyes locked, and months of denied attraction crystallized into something neither could ignore. When his hand touched her cheek, she didn't pull away. When his lips found hers, she responded with an intensity that surprised them both. Later, as they lay tangled in her sheets, Ilara traced the scar along his jaw. "This changes nothing about my position," she whispered, though her heart argued otherwise. "Doesn't it?" Kaelin's fingers threaded through her auburn hair, now loose around her shoulders. "You're not just a political arrangement to me anymore, Ilara. I think you know that." She turned away, unwilling to acknowledge how her plans for escape had begun to feel hollow. My people could benefit from a genuine alliance rather than forced submission. He pulled her back to face him. "There are other paths forward, if we're brave enough to find them." In the darkness, Ilara allowed herself to consider possibilities she'd previously refused to entertain. 3 months into their journey, alarms blared throughout the horizon. Ilara rushed to the bridge, finding Kaelin surrounded by officers shouting status reports. "The Draxis coalition has launched a simultaneous attack on both our ship and the Astrian capital," Daria explained, noticing Ilara's arrival. "My people," Ilara demanded, heart pounding. "Planetary defenses are holding but faltering," Kaelin answered grimly. "And we're cut off from reinforcements." "The Draxis have been waiting for this," an officer added. "With tensions between Astria and the Federation, they're exploiting our division." Ilara studied the tactical display, her diplomatic training, shifting to the military education she'd received since childhood. "There," she pointed, "the Kaelian asteroid belt. If we position here, we could use the gravitational field to amplify a targeted EMP burst." Kaelin stared at her. "That would disable their ships without destruction. And if we simultaneously transmit Federation security codes to Astria's defense grid, they'd recognize us as allies," Kaelin finished. "Brilliant, but dangerous. Someone would need to manually configure the EMP from a shuttle within the belt." Their eyes met in understanding. "I'll go," they said simultaneously. After brief but heated argument, they compromised. Both would go, while Daria commanded the horizon. The mission was perilous. Their shuttle navigated treacherous asteroid paths while under enemy fire. Working side by side, Ilara's diplomatic knowledge complemented Kaelin's military expertise perfectly. "If we survive this," Kaelin said as they prepared the final sequence, "I'm recommending you for a Federation strategic advisory position." "Planning my career already." Ilara managed a smile despite their dire situation. "Planning a future where I don't have to choose between my duty and you." The EMP deployed successfully, disabling the Draxis ships. As they returned to the horizon, reports confirmed that Astria had accepted their assistance, recognizing the Federation as allies rather than conquerors. That night, their lovemaking held a different quality, less desperate, more tender. The knowledge that they'd faced death together, protecting both their peoples, had transformed something between them. "I never expected this," Ilara whispered against his chest. "When you defeated Joreth, I hated you. And now..." Kaelin's arms tightened around her. She raised herself to look into his eyes. "Now I see the man, not the uniform. And that man..." She swallowed hard. "That man I could love, if circumstances were different." "Then let's change the circumstances," he said simply. The great hall of the Astrian palace was filled once more, but this time not with tension. Representatives from both the Federation and Astria stood witness as Kaelin and Ilara approached the crystal throne together. 3 months ago, I left this room as a defeated princess," Ilara addressed the assembly. "I return as something more, an equal partner in a new alliance that will strengthen both our peoples." Behind her, Tarek, Vinya, and Pella stood proudly, no longer attendants bound by ancient law, but appointed ambassadors to the Federation. The Treaty of Dual Sovereignty establishes Astria as an independent ally of the Federation, Kaelin announced. our military protection in exchange for access to Astrian technology and cultural exchange. The formal proceedings concluded with thunderous applause from both sides. As the crowd dispersed for the celebration banquet, Kalen led Ilara to a quiet balcony overlooking the capital city. "Not exactly how you plan to rid yourself of me," he teased, taking her hands in his. "I had considered several methods of disposal," she admitted with a smile. "Poisoning was high on the list. I'm grateful for your restraint." He grew serious. "The Council has approved my permanent assignment as Federation liaison to Astria. How convenient for us." She stepped closer. "There's one more matter to address." Kalen reached into his pocket, retrieving a small object that caught the light. Of Astria's 3 moons. On Earth, centuries ago, warriors would return from battle with tokens for those they loved. He opened his palm to reveal a ring crafted from an unusual metal, inlaid with gems that matched the color of his eyes. "This isn't a command or a political arrangement," he said softly. "This is Kalen asking Ilara if she would consider a personal alliance alongside our diplomatic one." Ilara took the ring, examining it with misty eyes. The princess who once served the commander now being asked to be his equal in all things? "He's better in most things," Kalen corrected with a grin. "Then, yes," she whispered, allowing him to slide the ring onto her finger. "Though I warn you, Commander Vross, I still plan to challenge many of your decisions." "I would expect nothing less, Your Highness." He pulled her close. "That's precisely why I fell in love with you." As their lips met, the forced servitude that had brought them together faded into insignificance. What remained was stronger, a covenant freely chosen, a bond between equals who had discovered that sometimes surrender could lead to the greatest victory of all.